are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, March 22nd. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net, and it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So already, we are off to a much better start than we were yesterday, because didn't know what day it was and then said the old link. But I was told in our production meeting that the old link still does work. So that's good to know. But yeah, so let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So starting off the show, we're going to talk about there being some level of optimism for the Jets in 2024. So we'll get into that. Some of the free agent signings seem to be confident going into this season, so we'll talk about that in a second. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about RG3's comments recently, basically telling Caleb Williams, do not say no to the Bears, basically. So I'll talk about that, and should Caleb Williams say no to the Bears. So we'll get into that. Then in the third part of the show, I'll talk about some of the teams that are primed for improvement in 2024 after free agency. And then in the final part of the show, I'll talk about the Chargers opening up, about the Keenan Allen trade, why that had to happen. Yeah, so that is the rundown for the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Jets. So I have talked about the Jets a decent amount recently because, you know, of some of their signings, signing Tyron Smith from the Cowboys, and most recently signing Mike Williams, the old now Chargers wide receiver, former Chargers wide receiver. And, you know, them two, and also Javon Kinlaw, they seem to be optimistic about the Jets' upcoming season. You know, Tyron Smith expressed enthusiasm about contributing to the winning culture with the Jets. He said, you know, the Jets signed him to a one-year deal worth $20 million. Mike Williams also talked about how he thinks it's going to be great pairing up with Aaron Rodgers, and that, you know, both players really see potential with this team. And also Javon Kinlaw as well had some positive comments. He was another guy that was added, obviously, was with Robert Saleh in San Francisco. The Jets bring him over to be part of that defensive line. So he also feels confident about the Jets going into 2024. He thinks that big things can happen for them. Well, all three players think that. Now, yeah, so Tyron Smith did talk about, you know, the winning culture. I guess building a winning culture. That's really what it comes down to. Because if you're saying the winning culture with the Jets, well, the Jets really haven't done a lot of winning. But with this team, can they build a winning culture? I think so. But there is a but in that. There's definitely things you could point to where you could say, well, I don't think that's going to happen. You could look at the coaching staff. You could look at the players that they did bring in and their past injuries. Tyron Smith and Mike Williams are guys that have gotten hurt over the years. Tyron Smith played in 13 games last season. You know, I think the previous season he played in either 2 or 4 games. I mean, I know I looked at it earlier in the week, but, you know, he has missed significant time over the course of his career. But if he is healthy, he is one of the best left tackles in the NFL. And what did the Jets really need to prioritize in this offseason? Is fixing that offensive line. And at least on paper, they have done that. They signed Tyron Smith. They signed John Simpson. They also traded for Morgan Moses. So they really made an effort to fix this offensive line, which is huge, especially when you have Aaron Rodgers coming off of that Achilles injury. And you bring in another weapon, a big target in Mike Williams, who, again, if he's healthy, that definitely can be a good signing for the Jets. And again, it's not a long-term commitment. So again, if it doesn't work out, then he's gone after 1 year. But for me, I think I did say this. I'm going to be in the minority because I think most people will look at the Jets and say it's going to fall apart. Even Jets fans themselves. I mean, I have coworkers that are Jet fans, family, friends. A lot of people that I know associate themselves with the Jets and are Jet fans. And most of them are not confident. They were confident going into last year, somewhat confident, and then that confidence just went out the window when Aaron Rodgers went down and got hurt. The talent is there. The defense was obviously the strength of the team last year, and most of those guys are still there. They lost a few people, but Joe Douglas, he does draft well in some areas. Obviously, not being able to find a franchise quarterback has been the problem, but you figure that the Jets, they will add, to that defense, in some capacity for the upcoming draft. The offense has been mainly the problem, and their inability to find that franchise quarterback. That's why they went out and they got Aaron Rodgers. And, of course, that didn't really pan out the first season because, again, he got hurt. So in year 2, you're hoping for a redo, and we get to actually see what this Jets team is capable of with the healthy Aaron Rodgers. Now, he's 40 years old. So, coming off of a significant injury with the Achilles, there are some question marks there. But for me, I think that if Aaron Rodgers is healthy and he gets good protection, there's no reason why this Jets team can't make the playoffs. They brought in Allen Lazard to be that number 2 wide receiver to Garrett Wilson, and it didn't pan out. Now you're bringing in Mike Williams, a big wide receiver, which I think really helps Aaron Rodgers. And it really helps Garrett Wilson, too. Gives you another threat at the wide receiver position. So the whole defense is not focused on him, not focused on Breece Hall. Now, again, I don't look at Mike Williams as, a top 5 wide receiver, but I think, he's had big games in his career. And, he did get off to a good start before he got hurt last season. So who's to say he can't bounce back and, be a valuable asset to this Jets offense? I think if he's healthy, yeah, I think he can go out there and make an impact, and especially when he has a Hall of Fame quarterback like Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football. So, again, you could call me crazy and being optimistic about this team. I'll be the one to do it. Now, with Rodgers being healthy, yeah, that kind of blocks all the, flaws that maybe Nathaniel Hackett has as a play caller because they worked so well together in Green Bay. But again, it's because it's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the reason why it didn't work out last year is because, well, Zach Wilson was not the answer. And, yeah, this offense was for Aaron Rodgers, not for Zach Wilson. And, yeah, again, that's why Nathaniel Hackett got the job. I mean, that's what a lot of people will say, is he got the job because the Jets were going after Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they got him first, and then shortly after that, they got, Aaron Rodgers came out and said that he intends to play with the Jets on the Pat McAfee show. So it wasn't a weird coincidence. They were planning this, which I again, most people know that, but I'm just, reiterating that. Yeah, and if it doesn't pan out in 2024, yeah, most likely all these guys are going to be gone. Robert Saleh, Hackett, Joe Douglas, they're all going to be gone. So this is a big year for the Jets. And again, you go back and look at what the defense did against some elite quarterbacks. I mean, against Josh Allen, against Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. They played really well. It's just, they did beat the Bills. They did beat the Eagles. And they came close to beating Mahomes. And that was one of Mahomes' worst games as a pro. And I was there. So Now, if you could just have better quarterback play, 7-10 could turn into 10-7 maybe. So I'm going to be a little optimistic, but I think it really is all going to come down to the health of Aaron Rodgers. Because if he gets hurt again, the season's not going to go anywhere. I mean, Tyrod Taylor can win games, but you're not going to go all the way to the Super Bowl with him. Yeah, you might back yourself into the playoffs, but maybe because, I mean, he is an upgrade over Zach Wilson, and he was okay with the Giants, but, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, those Super Bowl aspirations are gone again. And you're playing in a loaded conference. I mean, how many times have I said that? The conference is a gauntlet. You got so many teams that you're going to be competing with. Your best path to making the playoffs might be winning the division. And there's definitely a chance. There's definitely a chance because the Bills, they're going through a lot of changes. The Dolphins let go of some guys on defense as well. Although, they did, add some people. They added Poyer. They added Shaq Barrett. I mean, again, not huge signings, but again, they tried to, replace some of the guys that they had to get rid of. So Poyer stays in the division, going from the Bills to the Dolphins. Again, that might be their best path to making the playoffs is winning the AFC East. And with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, they could do that. They could do that. I mean, Joe Douglas went out and he addressed the offensive line. So, it's not like, because in the beginning, there were some comments that the offensive line was fine. And everyone's like, no, it's not. You got to fix it. Now, did he fix it? Well, we got to see when these players take the field. But he did address it. But it could also go another way. I mean, I talk about the Giants. They've tried. I mean, the Giants have made a lot of offensive lineman moves this offseason. They've signed a lot of guys for depth, and we'll see what ends up. I mean, and you drafted Andrew Thomas. Well, that was Dave Gettleman. You also, now Joe Shane drafts Evan Neal. He drafts John Michael Schmitz. So the Giants have made a lot of moves on the offensive line, but it still hasn't really panned out. But yeah, Dave Gettleman made moves, bringing in Nate Solder, and he signed Patrick Omame from the Jaguars back in the day. I mean, he made moves to try to, and he drafted Andrew Thomas. He made moves to try to improve the offensive line as well. It just did not pan out. So it could be that for the Jets, or it could be like when the Chiefs, they fixed their offensive line in one offseason. They drafted 2 linemen, right? Well, they drafted Creed Humphrey, I know that. They signed Joe Tooney, and then I think they signed Orlando Brown. So I don't know if they might have drafted, because Trey Smith, I think, did they draft him the year they drafted Creed Humphrey? I have to go back and look. But still, the year after they lost to the Bucs in the Super Bowl, they fixed their offensive line in one offseason. So the Jets could be that. Or they could be like the Giants, where you're going through that constant cycle of, signing guys, drafting guys, and it's just not panning out. And it's funny how the guys that I mentioned being optimistic about the Jets are all of their acquisitions, or some of their new acquisitions. Javon Kinlaw is confident and optimistic. Tyron Smith is optimistic. Mike Williams is optimistic that they really can have something good here with the Jets. And only time will tell. I think the Jets have to be better next year. It can't be another 7-10 season. But it's been a while, and maybe them beating the Patriots the final week of the regular season, maybe that's turning the page. Sending Bill Belichick, into the sunset, with the Patriots, ending his time with the Patriots with a loss, maybe the script is going to flip for the Jets, and maybe in 2024 they will be a really good team. Because on paper, yes, they can be a very good team, but now they just have to go out there and do it. And I think they can, although if anything like last year happens, you could come back and say that I was wrong, which is fine. But I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do it for my Jet fans, my family that are Jet fans, my friends, my coworkers. I'm willing to do it for you and be optimistic. And again, I've been called out about how pessimistic I've been, especially with, the team you see behind me, the Yankees. So I'm gonna be optimistic and say that the Jets will bounce back and they will be a playoff team next year. I'm saying this way too early. It's March 22nd. And we got to see what ends up happening in the draft. That's the other thing, too. The draft. They could add another receiver. Like I said, address the defense. There's still more moves to be made for the Jets. So let's be optimistic. Or at least I'll try to be. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we're actually going to talk about Caleb Williams. And should Caleb Williams say no to the Bears? So that's what we will discuss when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. Some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about Caleb Williams and should he say no to the Chicago Bears. Now, this is all about really RG3 telling Caleb Williams to say no to the Bears. So I'm going to give my opinion on should Caleb Williams say no to the Bears. So RG3 on his podcast basically was advocating for Caleb Williams to say, don't let the Bears draft you. Don't go to the Bears. Now, similar situation, and they talked about this. The Eli Manning situation with the Chargers. His family, they did not want Eli Manning to be drafted by the Chargers, which ended up happening. But then they ended up swapping quarterbacks. Obviously, Phillip Rivers went there. Eli Manning went to the Giants. And that was huge because who knows what would have happened if Eli Manning ended up getting drafted by the Chargers and Rivers ended up going to the Giants. Because, yeah, I mean, you could look at Phillip Rivers' regular season numbers and say, yeah, he was a better quarterback than Eli Manning. But did Phillip Rivers ever win a Super Bowl? Eli Manning's got 2. So that was a big deal. And that was one of the best quarterback classes of all time. We had those 2, and of course you had Ben Roethlisberger, who won 2 Super Bowls himself and went to 3. Fell a little bit short too, who we just talked about in the last segment, Aaron Rodgers, and when he was with his old team, the Green Bay Packers. So yeah, that's what this situation, or this hypothetical situation could be if Caleb Williams refuses to go to the Bears, which I don't think that's going to happen. But this is what RG3 said. He said, with everything, now again, I'm looking at an article in the New York Post with his quotes. So with everything that just happened with Justin Fields, can Caleb Williams really look at that and say, this is the organization that has my best interest in heart, and they are going to help develop me into the player I want to become? And then the other thing he said was, if I can find it, it's a little bit further down. He said, I thought Ryan Poles, Bears general manager, was having an amazing offseason up until this trade for Justin Fields. You trade Justin Fields to get some players back to help your team out this year. Because Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus, their head coach, they are in a lame duck season. They have to win this year or they are going to get fired. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of true, but at least the second part of that. Then he also said, I think this is what he said, but, right, this is, I think, RG, if I get drafted by the Bears, I'll be excited. Oh, this is Caleb Williams, what Caleb Williams said. If I get drafted by the Bears, I'll be excited. If they trade the pick and I get drafted by someone else, I'm just as excited. Speaking about Chicago, they have a talented team, a talented offense and defense. For anyone to be in that situation, I think they'd be excited. So that's what Caleb Williams said. And yeah, I mean, I love what the Bears did in the offseason. You know, you signed DeAndre Swift, you traded for Keenan Allen to go along with the players that you already have in place. I think the Bears is a good situation. It's probably, you know, the best supporting cast that the Bears have had in a long time. I mean, I guess since like Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett, Matt Forte. Like, I mean, I think so. I think it's better than 2018 with, you know, Allen Robinson as the top receiver, right? I mean, at least for me, I think that. And it's not like that cast really did a lot. You know, they didn't really do much when Cutler was the quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is a great situation, at least like the supporting cast-wise, to be drafted into. And that was the quote that Caleb Williams said, you know, it would be a great situation to get into. So I don't think Caleb Williams should say no. Now, again, I think the jury is still out on Matt Eberflus as a head coach. And you know what? The Bears, they played better towards the end of the season. The defense was playing better. I mean, now Justin Fields is not there anymore. But, you know, again, DJ Moore is coming off of a good season with the Bears. Solid first season with them. Cole Kmet really made big strides. I like the direction of the team. And, again, you added DeAndre Swift, who had a good season with the Eagles. Keenan Allen coming off of his best season with the Chargers. Now, again, Keenan Allen's got some injury concerns. I understand that. But still, I mean, you're getting another solid wide receiver to go along with DJ Moore. And who's to say that the Bears might not add another receiver in this draft? Because they have 2 top 10 picks. I mean, maybe they go and elect to, you know, move down with that pick or, you know, draft in another area. But I like the situation that, you know, the Bears have kind of built there. Now, again, they play in a very competitive division because the Packers are going to be really good, I think. You still got the Lions. And the Vikings, I mean, they got to figure out the quarterback situation, but I like their roster. Again, we'll see what happens if Justin Jefferson requests a trade to get out of there now that Kirk Cousins isn't there. But still, the Bears, I think, are going to be a better team in 2024. They got to go out there and prove it. I mean, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I kind of understand what RG3 is saying because, I mean, you traded away Justin Fields just to trade him. I mean, they did right by him by trading him to the Steelers. That's a good situation, but they didn't really get back anything significant. But you could also say, well, maybe Justin Fields just isn't as good as you may think he is. And this was probably the best offer that they could get. Again, Justin Fields makes plays with his legs, and, you know, you see the talent, but it's got to, you know, get better as a passer. That's kind of been a problem. So, and again, you know, he says the Bears should have got more players for him. Well, again, who knows what the other offers are? I don't know. And that 6th round pick could turn into a 4th round pick depending on, you know, how much he plays. So, Yeah, for me, I think Caleb Williams, you're not going to see another Eli Manning situation here. Caleb Williams is going to, if the Bears want to take him, the Bears are going to get him, and that's going to be the quarterback for the Bears next season. So I don't think that's going to happen. Now, again, am I being optimistic because it's the Bears? Yeah, again, it's just like the Jets. I mean, we're talking about the Jets and the Bears, two franchises that are trying to get over that hump. And yeah, I mean, I think the last time that these two teams won playoff games was in the same season, right? I think so, because the Jets, they lost to the Steelers in the championship game. The Bears lost to the Packers in the championship game of that season. I think that's the last time that those teams won playoff games. Because the Bears have made it. They made it in 2018, but they lost to the Eagles. They made it in 2020, but they lost to the Saints. They had a chance to win the NFC North in 2013, but that was when Aaron Rodgers came back from his collarbone injury, and he threw that pass up to Randall Cobb for essentially the game-winning touchdown. It wasn't a buzzer beater, but it was with a minute left or less than a minute. They had a chance to make the playoffs there, but they didn't get it. 2014, they didn't make it. 2015, they didn't make it. 2016, 17, then they transitioned to a new era with Mitchell Trubisky. Although, you had Mike Glennon as well, and that just did not pan out. And then Cutler ended up going to the Dolphins. But, yeah, so I think the last time those two teams won playoff games was when the Packers and the Steelers squared off in the Super Bowl. And those two teams were in the championship games. So, yeah, it's been a long time. For both of those teams, but I understand the, being a little, being skeptical of the Bears, but I mean, I think they've done a solid job this offseason. And again, you saw improvements towards the end of last year, and they just got to figure out a quarterback. Now, again, they drafted Mitchell Trubisky, and that didn't pan out. I mean, again, they made the playoffs in 2018, and he had a solid year, but then kind of regressed after that. And now he's a backup quarterback. So, and Caleb Williams is arguably the most talented quarterback in this draft. Now, again, you could have a lot of talent, but it's also got to translate once you get to the next level. So, and it's not like he's stepping in where you got an offensive-minded head coach. You got really an unproven head coach in Matt Eberflus that you're going to be stepping into. And that could definitely hurt his development. But I think with the talent that he will have around him, if that's where he ends up going, that definitely helps. So, we'll see. But, yeah, I don't think Caleb Williams should say no. I mean, again, it's not like, the Bears have a good supporting cast. Again, if he doesn't have a solid supporting cast around him, then yeah, I mean, then you could say, well, maybe he doesn't want to get drafted to the Bears. I don't know. But I don't think he should say no. I think I disagree with RG3 there. But again, that's his opinion. He's just saying that because of how they handled Justin Fields. And again, they probably did fail Justin Fields. Then they finally, get him a number one wide receiver in DJ Moore, and he's only with them for 1 year. And then you trade him. But again, I think you also have to look at the fact that they have the number one overall pick. If they didn't have that, Justin Fields probably doesn't get traded. This is something that they're like, hey, we got the number one overall pick. We're going to take another quarterback because we just don't believe. We just think that there's a better option there as opposed to what we have right now. And again, if they didn't have that luxury, if the Panthers did not finish with this horrible record, then yeah, Fields is probably still there. But we saw this with Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen. Okay, my fault for stuttering there, but yeah, we saw that with Rosen, and Kyler Murray. The Cardinals are like, all right, we have a chance to get Kyler Murray. We're going to draft him. Sorry, Josh, we're going with Kyler. It happens, and that's what happened here. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think Caleb Williams, he's going to get drafted by the Bears, and then we go from there. So, let me know what you guys think about that. Before we go into our next break, just want to remind you guys, once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will discuss teams, and one of them is a team we just talked about. We're going to talk about teams that are poised for some success after free agency. So we will talk about that when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about teams that are poised to improve after free agency. So, yeah, so let's get into that. So a couple of teams, actually, and I kind of just wanted to fix a couple of things on my segment title here. But, yeah, so there are some teams that we could look at. Yeah, I just changed how the segment title was here. But anyway, so yeah, there are teams that I look at and I say, yeah, they should improve in 2024. So obviously, a couple of them I did talk about: the Bears, the Jets, other teams as well. The Philadelphia Eagles, I think, will be back to being more of that team that we saw that began the season 10-1. With the new coordinators that they have now, and the players that they've added: Bryce Huff, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Devin White, Saquon Barkley. Linebacker was a problem for the Eagles, so they addressed that with a couple of other moves as well. I just feel like they should be better. They should be. But again, it's they lost Jason Kelsey, they lost Fletcher Cox, so yeah, that could be an issue. But I mean, I think that I think they should turn it around next season. But we'll see. But they have a lot of talent on this team. They also added Devontae Parker as well to be that third wide receiver. I mean, again, I don't know how good he's going to be, but we'll see. But I think this team is definitely going to be back to at least somewhat what they were when they were 10-1. Now, I don't know if they're going to be back to being that team from the previous season that went to the Super Bowl, but I think, especially in the NFC East, I think they are going to be back to being the Eagles that we know. And again, with Saquon Barkley running behind that offensive line, The running game is going to be an issue for teams. So we'll see how that goes. But for some other teams as well, I mean, again, I talked about the Jets. They addressed the offensive line. They added Mike Williams. That combined with the healthy Aaron Rodgers, they should be a better team in 2024 as well. And the Bears, if they figure out the quarterback situation, if Caleb Williams is the guy, that is another team that should improve next season. And then some of the other teams as well, the Atlanta Falcons. What was their problem last season? It was quarterback. And they went out and they got Kirk Cousins. And they should be a better team. And they play in a division that's not loaded. The Buccaneers, they won the division. And honestly, they kind of got lucky because, in the middle of the season, they were struggling. And then, then Baker Mayfield got hot. They started playing better. And, if it wasn't for the Saints with their inconsistencies and the Falcons with, the lack of good quarterback play, Bucs probably don't win the division. The Falcons, what they were missing was a quarterback, and they went out and got Kirk Cousins. They did pay him a lot of money. I mean, $100 million guaranteed, coming off of an Achilles injury himself. Yeah, it's a little bit of a risk, but I think Kirk Cousins is going to bounce back. He's going to put up good numbers in this offense. They have good playmakers. Again, not as good of a situation as the Vikings with, of course, the best wide receiver in the NFL, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. That's a better situation. But in terms of, looking at their offense. But you got Drake London. Let's see what he could be with Kirk Cousins now. Kyle Pitts. You got a pair of decent running backs in Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. So, yeah, and then also they went out and they added Darnell Mooney. They also, traded for Rondell Moore. So I think that, the Falcons right now, you could look at them as maybe being the favorites in the division, in my opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. And yeah, Kirk Cousins, let's see how he is bouncing, coming back from the Achilles injury. But I think that, right now the Falcons, you could look at them as maybe being the favorites with the division. So a couple of other teams as well. You could look at a couple of AFC North teams. The Bengals, you figure, are going to be better because if Joe Burrow comes back and is healthy, they're going to improve. They still, despite him being hurt, they still finished 9-8. And if he's healthy next season, the Bengals are going to be one of the top teams in the AFC. And it was unfortunate that his season got cut short last year because the Bengals, once he started getting healthy and that calf injury was a thing of the past, the Bengals looked like a much different team. They looked like that team that made it to the previous 2 AFC championship games. And it looked like they were going to be poised for another run. But unfortunately, Burrow hurts his wrist. And that kind of, I don't want to say it derailed their season because, again, they still finished 9-8 and they still had a chance to make the playoffs. But it just, again, a deep playoff run was not in the cards. Maybe they would have been able to make it, but they ended up not making it. But because Jake Browning actually, played decent for him. So then, people are like, hey, I mean, you still got all the weapons around him. This is an experienced team. Maybe they find a way to get in. But no, they were on the outside looking in. But with Burrow healthy, they could definitely find themselves back in the playoffs once again. Also, the Steelers. The Steelers' quarterback room is completely different now. You got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Kenny Pickett traded away. Mason Rudolph and Mitchell Trubisky, they signed with different teams. It's a different quarterback room, and it's a better quarterback room. Now, again, does that mean that the Steelers are going to, be one of the top teams in the AFC? I don't think so, but they at least improved the quarterback position. What they have right now in place is better than what they had last year. Might lead to maybe, the same record, maybe another win. I love what they did adding Patrick Queen on the defensive side of the ball. The defense, that's the strength of the team. And, we'll see how Russell Wilson, or if Justin Fields has to play, we'll see how they mesh with what the Steelers have on offense. But the Steelers always find a way to make the playoffs. Well, I shouldn't say always, but they do find ways to make the playoffs, especially in 2023, where they were another team that had that roller coaster of a season. It looked like, hey, I don't know, it was like, how are they winning these games? I mean, they went on the road and beat the Rams. I mean, again, it's not really a road game, but still, I mean, the Rams, it was going to be a tough game, and they won that. They just find ways to win games that you just don't expect, and that was one of those games. And Kenny Pickett wasn't playing great, but they were still finding ways to win. And then once he got hurt, that's when things changed. And Mitchell Trubisky came in. They lost to the Patriots. They lost to the Cardinals, two teams that are picking in the top 5. Although the Cardinals, they could be a team that trades out of that because they are listening to offers for their top 5 pick. So we'll keep an eye on that. But, you lose to those two teams. You lose to the Colts, and it looked like, the Steelers' season's over. But then late in that game against the Colts, basically at the very end, they put Mason Rudolph in, and then they ended up making the playoffs. So it was a roller coaster of a season for the Steelers. And for next year, with Russell Wilson, with Justin Fields, we'll see how that goes. But Russell Wilson right now is the starter. And I think the Steelers, they got some things they need to address in this draft. I think, maybe adding another wide receiver. I know they signed Van Jefferson. They had to do something because Deontay Johnson they traded. You still got George Pickens there. You still got Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin. But they need to add to that wide receiver room. And then, of course, in the backfield, you got Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, which is a nice duo that they got. Jaylen Warren definitely showed improvement. And so we'll see. But it helps when you have that defense. You got Mike Tomlin. So we'll see what the Steelers can do in 2024. So, a couple of AFC North teams, them and the Bengals. But it's a tough division because you look at the Browns and, they made the playoffs with Joe Flacco, and now you're hoping that, Deshaun Watson comes back healthy, Nick Chubb comes back healthy. They traded for Jerry Jeudy, and then they signed him to a 3-year extension. So you got the Browns to deal with. You got the Ravens now with Derrick Henry. So that division they're really going to beat up on each other. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But, those are the teams that, at least for me, the Bengals, it's more so that Burrow's coming back healthy. But, at least, on the free agency side of things, you look at what the Bears did, the Jets, the Eagles. Those teams, I think, they're going to improve from last season. The Steelers, quarterback room is different. Again, we'll see how much the quarterbacks elevate, the offense. Listen, Russell Wilson, you could say whatever you want, but he did have a decent year. 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. So that at least has to count for something. That at least, you look at those numbers, you put him in the Steelers offense. The Steelers offense is going to be better. How much better? Got to watch the games. Got to see how it all pans out. But it's it's going to be exciting to see a lot of how Russ does in Pittsburgh, how a lot of guys that change teams, how they're going to do. Because again, this offseason was just wild. So, but again, like I said, only time will tell what these teams end up doing. Again, the Bears, they still got to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, which it's probably going to be drafting Justin Fields, which I just spent the whole segment on. But again, they could throw a curveball at us and they draft somebody else. So, but all signs seems like they point to Caleb Williams being the guy. So when we come back from our final break of the show, again, let me know what you guys think. What team, and maybe there's a team I didn't talk about, but what team do you think made significant improvements to their roster, and what teams do you see being poised for success in 2024? Obviously, you could say, well, the Chiefs. Well, yeah, but the Chiefs, they brought back Chris Jones, they signed Marquise Brown. I mean, the Chiefs just came off of a Super Bowl championship, so yeah, of course they're going to be there. But these are the teams that are looking to make a big jump in 2024 that didn't have a great 2023. So, but yeah, so when we come back from our final break of the show, we will talk about the Chargers and them talking about the Keenan Allen trade, why it had to happen, and that will conclude the show and conclude the week. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Chargers opening up about the Keenan Allen trade, why it had to happen. So let's get right into that. So the general manager of the Chargers spoke on this. Basically, he said how he didn't love parting with Keenan Allen, but it's because of course, the Chargers cap situation that it had to happen. General Manager Joe Hoyts, I think that's how you pronounce it. I apologize again if I mispronounce his name. But so he spoke on this. This is an article on NFL.com. So this is what he said. He said, yeah, I knew who I was trading. He's a very talented player, and I respect him as a player, as a person. It's difficult when you have to cut a player, trade a player, release a player. It's always difficult for a player like him, certainly, but it creates an opportunity for other players to step up. Again, we're not done building that room out, so we're going to look to continue to add pieces to the room. He said that the club approached Allen and his representatives with multiple different options, including an extension, but noted just none of them worked out. I think when you're talking about trading Keenan specifically, yeah, that's not a decision you make with no acknowledgement of. This is a talented player that can still compete. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough decision. I mean, the Chargers, their cap situation was not good, and they had to make tough decisions. They released Mike Williams, they traded Keenan Allen. I mean, fortunately, they were able to restructure the contracts of Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, so at least you have those guys on the defensive side of the ball. But offensively, I mean, look at the turnover. Mike Williams is gone, Keenan Allen's gone, Austin Eckler is gone. I mean, he was a free agent. He left and signed with the Commanders. Gerald Everett signed with the Bears. So, yeah, I mean, it was tough for them. And, again, you got Justin Herbert still there, of course. And, we'll see how he is with who else they decide to bring in. Because right now, again, I mean, I've talked about this a lot. I mean, they have Gus Edwards now as the lead back at the moment. You have Joshua Palmer and you have Quinn Johnston. That's your well, they also did bring in Will Dissly. I forgot to mention that, another tight end from the Seahawks. So yeah, I mean that's right now that's the Chargers offense. So we'll see what they end up doing in the draft. I mean, you figure they're going to draft a receiver, but yeah, it was a tough decision. And I don't know. I feel like at least for me, I thought they were going to be able to keep Keenan Allen. But I guess because they wanted him to take a pay cut. And again, he wasn't budging because he was coming off of a very good season. Probably his best season as a pro, or one of his best seasons as a pro. And he even said it. He wasn't going to take a discount, especially coming off of the year that he had. So he finished the year 6th in receptions. He had 108 receptions. He had 1,243 receiving yards, which was 11th, and then he was tied for 18th with 7 touchdowns. He also threw a touchdown as well. But yeah, had a great season. I mean, let's compare it to his other seasons. 2017, he had almost 1,400 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns, and he had 102 receptions that season. A couple others. Yeah, I mean, he's had 1,000 yards. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, in 6 seasons. 2016, I know he got hurt in the very first game of the season, so yeah, he only had 6 receptions for 63 yards. That was his stat line for that season. But yeah, the one thing, when you look at Keenan Allen's stats, it's consistency. Now, he's dealt with some injuries, which again, who hasn't? From 2017 to 2019, he played in all 16 games. Played in 14 in 2020, 16 in 2021, 10 in 2022, and then 13 in 2023. But when he plays, he puts up good numbers. And he's still a solid wide receiver. He's 31. And I think he's going to do well with the Bears. And he's going to be opposite of DJ Moore. So, I mean, I like that duo for the Bears a lot. But, yeah, I mean, he even said it, like, he was not taking a discount. So that forced the Chargers' hand, and they had to, unfortunately, trade him. And now they're going to be looking to kind of rebuild this receiving core, which I think with Harbaugh, I think they're going to get this right, and they're going to be a team that's going to make the playoffs. I don't know about in 2024, but I think the future is bright for them. But again, the Chargers are another franchise that it's hard to be optimistic. And maybe I'm just too optimistic. I'm optimistic about them. I'm optimistic about the Jets. I'm optimistic about the Bears. Because, again, you just look at the moves that they've made, and you think, yeah, they should be. I mean, I'm not looking at them and saying, yeah, they're going to go to the Super Bowl. They're going to knock off the Chiefs. No. But I'm saying that there should be improvement. There should be improvement. I mean, the Chargers is a little bit different because they're trying to rebuild. The Jets are looking at. I mean, again, I think the Chargers are looking to compete, but also, like, let's be realistic. Right now, I don't look at them as, I mean, borderline playoff team maybe, with Justin Herbert, but nothing more than that. I mean, again, the Chiefs got the division. I mean, the Chiefs are always going to be my pick right now to win the division. So really, you're looking at the wild card. But again, like you look at the NFC with the Bears. The conference is not as loaded, so we'll see. And again, they still got to figure it out with a quarterback. We'll see again what I talked about, how Caleb Williams could be with them. And then the Jets, yeah, I mean, they got Super Bowl aspirations. They have Super Bowl aspirations. Again, I don't look at them as, the team to go to the Super Bowl, but I'm being optimistic about them. I think they will be better next season. But, for the Chargers, yeah, it's because they got to fix that cap situation, and they've done that. And now let's see what they do. Let's see what they do in the draft. But yeah, it's a tough decision, especially because with Keenan Allen, just because, again, he's been there for so long. He's been there for over 10 years, around 10 years. And, yeah, it's tough to move off a player like that. But they had no choice. They weren't able to come to an agreement on a new contract, and he ultimately ended up getting traded, which I was surprised because I was like, yeah, I mean, Mike Williams, I wasn't surprised by that. I thought maybe, Khalil Mack, you could have saw him getting moved, but that ended up not happening. Like I said, they kept him and Joey Bosa. Austin Eckler left. I thought, you know what, maybe they're going to find a way to keep Keenan Allen because you got to keep somebody. But no, they traded him. So, like I said, depth chart right now, it's Quentin Johnston, Joshua Palmer, and I think Darius Davis. So, you got to add to that. Now, again, there's some receivers out there that they could go out and get. But, I mean, they're probably focused on the draft. So, yeah, we'll see. But, again, it's the reason, of course, is the cap situation that they had to make the move. But, you could, at least from what the general manager is saying, yeah, it was a tough decision. And, but it's just something that had to be made. So, again, the Chargers are going to look, I mean, I've said this a lot. The Chargers are going to look different in 2024. There's no question about that. And it's a new era with Jim Harbaugh. So, again, the draft's coming up in a month. Let's see what they do. And maybe there's more moves to be made. Who knows? But, yeah. But let me know what you guys think about the whole Keenan Allen situation. Again, the logical answer is yeah. The Chargers should have kept him. But just let me know what you guys think about the whole situation. I mean, should Keenan Allen have, maybe taken one of the deals that they were trying to give him? I mean, again, if it's a significant pay cut, then yeah, I mean, and you're coming off of a great year, yeah, probably not. But if you guys have any thoughts on that, let me know. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, that topic. And yeah, another week in the books. I hope everybody enjoyed the first day of March Madness yesterday. Was able to, at least, catch some of the games. If any of you guys are part of that low percentage that still has a perfect bracket, good for you, which probably not. I know Bijan Robinson, he had I think he still has a perfect bracket. But yeah, mine was busted after the first game. Not surprised. But still got my Final Four teams. Still got my national champion. Again, UConn I picked, but we'll see what happens today. But yeah, looking forward to just watch those games all weekend. And yeah, and again, hopefully something happens in the NFL. Another, a trade maybe goes down. Again, because Justin Fields and Aaron Donald, all that happened after I was done recording, so maybe something else will happen. So, we'll see. But, yeah, I mean, again, I think the craziness might be over until the draft. But you never know. You never know. So, yeah, a lot of things are coming up, though, of course. I mean, yeah, the draft at some point. But right now you got March Madness. Baseball is going to be starting next week. I mean, it already started with the Dodgers and Padres. And Shohei Ohtani was in the news about something. So make sure to tune in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast to learn more about what happened with Shohei Ohtani. Because, I believe that will be covered because it's a big story. But yeah, that's a headline. But baseball is going to be starting again. You got the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs; those are coming up soon. So yeah, I mean, this is a great time to be a sports fan. So yeah, looking forward to baseball season. Because I mean, I try to watch every Yankee game as much as I can. I try not to miss them. So you might call me a little bit of a psycho, but yeah, I mean, that's where my fandom lies. So, with the NFL, you only got 17 games in there once a week. Baseball's every day, and it's 162 games, and the NBA and the NHL are half that. So, but yeah, looking forward to all that. March Madness, like I said, is in full swing. So yeah, got to be excited. So make sure to tune into all the other shows on the network to get all their perspectives on the other sports. Because obviously, I'm in off-season mode, so that's all. That's what I'm talking about right now. But yeah, and let's just hope that we get warm weather consistently. Because at least on the East Coast here, now it's back to being cold. So let's, it was in the 60s at one point. Now all of a sudden it's, back down to 30s and 40s. I mean, what's going on? But that's the weather for you. So, but anyways, again, leave a comment, a like on the video. Let me know what you guys think about all the topics that we discussed today. again, I did talk about the Jets a decent amount this week just because, again, signing Tyron Smith, Mike Williams, and now all those guys coming out and saying that the Jets have, Jets could have a good season. They were optimistic. Yeah, and then obviously talked about them and other teams looking to improve in 2024. And obviously Caleb Williams, and should he say no to the Bears? Well, I said he should get drafted to the Bears. And the quote that I read in the second segment, basically says all you need to know, that yeah, that he would be open to it. And then of course Keenan Allen as well. The Chargers, it was a tough decision for them, but it was a decision that they had to make. So with that being said, that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be back again on Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Enjoy all the March Madness games. And I will talk to you guys on Monday. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that